Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hopefully everybody is doing well today.
No Name is a rescue from the Niagara Falls Humane Society.
Hopefully everybody's doing well today. Good to see everybody. Good to see everybody. Starting to get some people coming in here. I'm going to give it a couple more minutes to let people roll in before we really kick things off. But it's fantastic to see so many people showing up on a Friday. I know it's been a long week for everybody. It's been a long week here at Microsoft too. Busy, 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 busy. Yeah, oh yeah, we're getting lots of good people coming in here. Fantastic. Somebody give me a thumbs up. Can you hear me okay? Voice sound good? The screen look good? All look okay? Give me a thumbs up.
Calgary-based Imperial Oil to eliminate 20% of the...
Thank you, thank you. Just remind everybody, please be on mute. All right, thank you, Wendy. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Penny. Appreciate that. Great, great, great. Great to see everybody. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Just give it a couple minutes here before we get a couple more people in here. Awesome, awesome. Okay. Getting a good amount of people here. I think we'll just start it off here. So welcome, everybody. Great to see everybody again. This is our Compliance Meets AI webinar series. Anybody give me a thumbs up? Who was here last week? Saw the great session that we had with Liz Sundin around SharePoint Advanced Management and how we can really kind of start closing that gate when it comes to permissioning. Hopefully a lot of you were able to join that session. If not, I do have the recording and I will drop that link in the chat window right now so you all have access to it. And here's that recording. So feel free to watch that series as we go. Go back. It's posted up on YouTube. Everybody should have access to it. So easy, easy, easy there. Should have no problems whatsoever getting to that. And today, great session lined up for today as well. So today we're going to be talking about data security posture management for AI, DSPM for AI. Great, great topic, probably where I spend a lot of my time, honestly. As you can imagine, I talk about this pretty much day in and day out. And DSPM for AI is really one of those starting places that we're going to really kind of kick off and gives us a lot of visibility into what we can see within Microsoft Purview when it comes to Copilot and even non-Copilot generative AI, things like ChatGPT, Gemini, and all the rest. So we're going to cover that. Well, I'm going to do a deep dive session on that. It's going to take about 35 minutes to go through that content, a little more. I'll try to get it in there as best I can. And then I'm going to give us 10 minutes at the end too. So I've keep 10 minutes in for questions, for Q&A. So anything you may have on your mind, feel free to jump in at any point when we get there. Couple rules of the road for the session today. This goes across all of them. So all attendees' microphones are going to be muted during the session. And that just cuts down on chatter and keeps things kind of easy for everybody to listen. But we will have a Q&A session at the end. So we get to that Q&A session. Please feel free to raise your hand. And I'll enable your mic at that point so you can come off of mute and ask your questions as we go. But feel free to put questions in the chat too. We have people looking at the chat to help us answer questions as we go. And I'll take breaks too to look at the chat just to make sure that all questions are getting answered. And I'll try to read them out loud too as we go. So there'll be a lot in here. Everything is being recorded. So everything will be recorded in this session. You should get an email a couple days after the session ends automatically with the link to the recording. I'm also going to send out an email at the end too. The email is going to contain basically, the links to last session's recording, the links to today's recording. It's also going to include the PDF of the deck from last week and the PDF deck from this week too. And there will be a short survey too. So please take time to fill out that survey. In fact, I'm going to drop that survey in the chat right now so you have it handy. But I also send this out via email so you can have that later. Please take just a few minutes for the survey. It's really short. It'll take 2 minutes basically to fill it out. And like I said, I'll send that at the mail too. But the survey is really intended to help us tailor these sessions towards you. What do you want to know? What other topics do you want to know? And we take the feedback extremely seriously. I go over it with my teammates and we talk about how we can improve these sessions. So please also. Um, I'll get to that one, Christina. We've got a question already. Just give me a few minutes to get through this first part, and we'll come back to that one. Couple other things just to talk about here. The team. So myself, whoopsie, missed a slide there. This is Jay Cotton. I am from San Francisco, California. Just outside of San Francisco, actually. My good friends Ben and Kevin are also going to be on the chat, monitoring the chat for us during the session too to help us answer questions. I've been with Microsoft 14 years now. I started off in the email world back in New York City when Microsoft first hired me doing migrations. So I've really got to see this cloud journey really evolve. When I was doing it, people were really scared to put their email in the cloud. So how far we've come since then, it's quite impressive. But we also have Ben and Kevin. They're going to be answering questions as we go, watching the chat for us as well. A couple other things to note. So this is a webinar series. We had our first session last week. I did post that link to the recording in the chat already. Great session. That was really talking about oversharing, right? So that's the concern that everybody has is that oversharing. How do we control that? And we did a great deep dive into SharePoint Advanced Management to really help us along that journey. Today, of course, the DSPM for AI. Next week, we're going to be talking about DLP. My good friend Ben is going to be leading that session and how we can use data loss prevention with Copilot via sensitivity labels and some other ways we can go about that as well. So good session there. On the 24th, we're going to be talking about retention, auditing, and e-discovery. Tend to be overlooked topics, but they're very important. They really are. Knowing how to retain data, in specifics, Copilot data, is extremely useful. We want to know how to do that. And then how do we actually find what's been going on? How do we see those prompts? Is it from the audit logs or in e-discovery? How do we pull that data back, put data on hold for Copilot and all the rest? So great session there. 31st, where we talk about communication compliance. And then we're going to wrap up on the November 7th with the insider risk. Insider risk is a really deep topic. I'm going to touch on briefly today, not really too much. I don't want to steal the thunder from those sessions, but I will mention it because it is part of DSPM for AI. If you have not registered for all the sessions, please do. I'm going to drop the link into the chat window for these. It's right here. So if you haven't registered, please do. We're filling up pretty quick. I keep having to bump up the attendance max. So please come register. And there'll be great sessions. It's going to be just like we're doing today. It's going to be teacher-led. It's going to be myself or one of my teammates talking. And we're really going to go into the nitty-gritty on this one, get into deep dives of how all of this actually works across Copilot and the different generative AI technologies and how we can use Purview with them as well. And last one to talk about mainly for healthcare customers out there, but this is really open to everybody. There's a great chat series going on right now. So basically it's training on how to use Copilot chat. And Copilot chat, remember, everybody has access. If you have an Office 365 license, you have access to Copilot chat. So please feel free to register for these sessions as well. It's a great team leading them. I help with it too myself, actually. But it's great out there, so please register for those as well. And I'll drop that last link in here. Okay. So please feel free to register for those sessions. They're really great. And last thing I want to talk about is everything that we're talking about in these sessions. Thanks, Kevin. Everything we're going to talk about in these sessions, we have at Microsoft, we have additional opportunities for learning to help you onboard, to get these things set up. So a list of them on the screen. The OAs, onboarding accelerators, so those are really there to help you really kind of kick the tires, get it up and running, whether it's in production or in dev. So we talk about, Purview, generative AI, we talk about DSPM, we talk about data lifecycle management, data loss protection. All of these are basically every session are there. So please talk to your Microsoft account manager if you know who that is. If you don't know who that is, just drop me an email. I'm always available to help you kind of guide you along to find the right people within the organization to talk to. So we have a lot of great offerings out there that you can take advantage of. So just drop me an email if you don't know who your Microsoft account rep is, and happy to help you find that. Quick question on the previous recording. I'll drop that in here one more time, and then I'll come back and drop it as we go. Awesome. Okay, so let's get kicked off today. Not going to spend a lot of time on decks. I'm not a huge PowerPoint person, if anybody's ever seen me present before, but I will share this deck out. So DSPM for AI. So the DSPM stands for Data Security Posture Management. And it's there to help us not only have deep insights into Copilot and other generative AI activities, but also helped us to create policies around that. So help control. We can create policies with insider risk, communication compliance, and even data loss prevention policies. So that's really what it's there for. Great article in that link below. And like I said, I will send everything out, but I'll drop this in the chat really quick so you just have access to that article right now. And that's really kind of your one-stop shop. And I'll touch on that when we actually get into the demo part of it too, just to show you where it's at. But it's a great starting point to learn everything about DSPM for AI. So it's there for you. It's there to use. And it is extremely, extremely valuable. It does give you that deep insight and those abilities to control and monitor Copilot usage, but also other pieces around other generative AI products as well. And we're going to take a really deep dive into this today in the demo part. I'm going to go through it pretty much soup to nuts as we go. As I mentioned, it's not just for Copilot, but it is there for Copilot. So, we're here at Microsoft, we're, deploying Copilot. I'm deploying Copilot every day to my customers. And, really, the question goes, okay, we have these licenses, we're going to start deploying it. How do we have an eye on this? How do we keep track of this? How do we look at this? And that's really what DSPM for AI is really all about. Data security posture management is there. It gives us the deep insight into Copilot activity, and that includes all types of Copilot, whether that is Copilot just as is, Copilot chat, the one that everybody has if you have a license. Copilot paid version is there as well. It also can monitor agents. So if you have an agent, whether that is a simple SharePoint agent, any of our declarative agents that are out there, it even looks at our first-party agents, so agents like analyst, researcher, and all the rest. And even it can monitor things like, of course, ChatGPT, Gemini, and even those agents that we create within Azure Foundry. So Azure first-party agents that you yourself, your organization has created, we can also have that telemetry and see that as well. So all of these, yes, it can monitor Copilot Lite agents. Great question, Miguel. So Copilot Lite used to be called the Agent Builder, but now they call it Copilot Lite because Microsoft, as you all know, loves to rebrand things. But yes, Copilot agents are also included in there, and both versions of Copilot, Miguel, whether that's Copilot Studio Full, the Copilot Lite, and even those Lite agents that we can set up in SharePoint, super click, no code type of things. So we can have access and visibility and controls on all of that. And all the controls that we talked about here, whether this is the DLP, yes, this is currently, my friend, you can see those Copilot Lite agents as well. And I'll actually show you an example as we go through. I've got a couple in my tenant already set up, and I can show you how we can see them with Activity Explorer. So all of these are covered. And again, of course, through the Edge browser, things like ChatGPT, Gemini, even the consumer version of Copilot, Grok, you name it. There's a huge list of them that I'll show you that we can actually cover when it comes to non-Microsoft generative AI products. All right, so let's start taking a quick look. So first off, Activity Explorer. I'm not going to talk too much about this, but Activity Explorer is there for us to give us that visibility. And this is where we can see everything. This is where we can see those Copilot chat activities. This is where we can see Copilot Studio activities. This is where we can see Copilot paid activity. This is where we see everything. And we can filter on all sorts of things. We can filter on what type of app it's actually using, where the app is. Did they use Copilot in Word? Did they use Copilot in Excel? Did they use Copilot in PowerPoint? Are they just using Copilot in Teams to record a session or to review a session? All those are covered. And it collects a lot of information. It collects who does it, so you can actually see who the person is if you so choose. Now, that can be turned off if you want to anonymize things, so you don't have to see the people. But you can see the people that's being used by. You can see what type of sensitive information they may be interacting with. So remember, depending on how things go, you could have who knows, all sorts of different things on the screen when it comes to your sensitive information types. Maybe it's credit cards, maybe it's social security numbers, maybe it's PII, PHI. It'll bring that up. So when Copilot reasons over something, it's going to tell you which sensitive information type has actually been done. It's going to show you the name of the agent, if there's an agent out there that's using it. And it's even going to show you whether or not web grounding was used. So remember, when we're using Copilot, this is all Copilots really, we make a query. Now, either that query goes to whatever source we're looking at. Maybe we're looking at a Word doc or a PowerPoint that we're reasoning over, or an Excel doc, or maybe we're asking a question. If we ask a question, we go out and we use the web search, web grounding to go find that data. So it can tell you when it's doing that as well. So really, really great stuff that we can see in Activity Explorer. A lot more. We can actually see things like you have a DLP policy that was hit, that will trigger. You'll see that in Activity Explorer as well. So that's really kind of that one place where you can see a lot of material around all of this different generative AI activity. And we're going to take a deeper look at this when we get into the demo part as well. Oops. Here we go. Other piece, we do have what we call data risk assessment. So data risk assessment is part of DSPM for AI as well. If you remember in our sessions yesterday, we were talking about last week, I mean, we were talking about oversharing and how to look at this oversharing and get this view of it. We were using SharePoint Advanced Management that, and SharePoint Advanced Management is a great tool for that. It can do a really deep dive to really kind of find down and lock down those sites when we need to. We also have a view of that within DSPM for AI as well. It's called the Data Risk Assessment. It's there to help us kind of review how these oversharings kind of occur. It uses the top 100 sites. So the top 100 most visited sites is what it looks at in your tenant. And that's by default. And it runs on a weekly basis. It keeps running. It keeps running. Once you turn it on, you just turn it on and let it go. And it'll keep populating data. You can export the reports out, as you can see on the screen there, to bring that back and kind of give you basically a snapshot week by week of what you have in your tenant and what's going on. And we'll look at this more in depth too as well. Another point about that is you can actually point it at a particular site. So you can say, hey, you know what? I want you to go look at this site and give me a review of it. So you can customize this to look at particular SharePoint sites you have of interest. Maybe it's something like your HR sites, or maybe a site that your senior executives have their data in, or whatever that may be. But you can point it at it and it'll give you the same type of reporting. We'll take a look at that. You can even take actions from here as well. So as you look at a particular site, you see something that may be concerning, you can click on it, and then there'll be some suggested actions like apply sensitivity labels to it, or even go through and use SharePoint Advanced Management to disable that site from being indexed by the graph so people cannot get to it as well. And we'll take a look at that. But that's another part of DSPM for AI. And then we have all of our different policies, and I'll look at that as well. We'll look at that as well. So the different policies we have out there, we have policies that relate to data loss prevention. So that's really great. So how do we actually use DLP with sensitivity labels to control what Copilot can actually reason over? We also have insider risk management policies. So that's the IRM. We're going to talk about that in the last session in depth, but I'll touch on it briefly there. And that's a way to take telemetry that how people are using it as we go through. So with insider risk, we can set up things to look for possibly, going to risky, what we call Gen AI sites, depending on what your policies are, copying and pasting data into those generative AI sites as well. And then we also have communication compliance policies, and I'll talk about that briefly too, but we have another session just for that. And that's a way to monitor also for Copilot activity and other generative AI as well. Quick pause there. Should customers still run SAM reports if they have DSPM for AI? Great question, Katisha. Yes, they should actually. So SharePoint Advanced Management is a deeper dive into what we can do. So SharePoint Advanced Management will look at the totality of your actually SharePoint environment, or it can. DSPM for AI is just going to look at the top 100 most visited sites. It's a great snapshot in time for us as compliance administrators to look at that. And then when we see something that may be concerning, we can then talk to our SharePoint administrators and they can go back and run SAM on it to see what we can do, and then use SharePoint Advanced Management to possibly lock it down from there as well. So yes, both are there. DSPM for AI, licensing standpoint, you really want E5 for this. E3, if your customers have E3 or your clients have E3, that's okay, but you can be done from a compliance standpoint, it's best to have E5 because then you don't really have the ability to do things like set up DSP insider risk policies or those communication compliance policies. Those are E5 centric pieces to it there. Activity Explorer you can use with E3, but those policies for insider risk, communication compliance are more E5 focused, or the compliance upskew. I don't remember the name of it anymore. We used to call it IPMG upskew as well. Great point. Yep, you have a Copilot license, then you get SAM as part of that bundle as well. You don't have to pay extra for SAM. It's not the full-on blown every piece of SharePoint Advanced Management, but it's the pieces that relate to oversharing, reviews, being able to use lock sites down and such. So great point there. So those are the policies, and those are the three things we're going to touch on today. We're going to touch on Activity Explorer. We're going to look at just setting up DSPM for AI, making sure you have everything you need for it, and the rest for that. So let me transition over here. Okay, so here we are. First off, here's that link for DSPM for AI. This is the kind of that place, the starting place. I put this in the chat window. I'll do it one more time just so we have it. But this is the starting documentation, and it really goes soup to nuts. It really does. It does a great job. It talks about permissioning. It talks about licensing. It talks about what roles you need to have within the tenant. Question, Miguel. So the questions about licensing, does DSPM for AI have for E3? Documentation is E5. So it says E5 before it, or the compliance manager upskew. If you're just using communication, I mean, you're just using Activity Explorer, E3 will work, but E5 is really what we're looking for the most part. So you can use those advanced functionalities, things like communication compliance policies and insider risk policies. If you don't have E5, then you won't be able to put those policies into place. So yeah, E5 for the most part, but if it's just Activity Explorer, you can use E3. But yeah, like I said, this is a great one-stop shop for everything in here. It talks about basically setting it up, purview, what permissions you need, everything else. So again, this is a great place to go. It goes through different prerequisites about onboarding, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. And then it even goes into all the different sites. So these are all the different generative AI sites that we can monitor with Purview and DSPM for AI in particular. As you see, the list is quite lengthy. And as it says right at the top, we can expect this list to increase over time. And it has increased over time. Started out, when we first started doing DSPM for AI, it's 114 sites, and I don't even know what the count is now. I've lost it, but it's huge. Correct. Awesome. So here we are in Purview, and here we are in DSPM for AI, Data Security Posture Management. So this is where we start. And this is just the overview page. And it gives us basically what we need to know right off the bat to get this up and running. So first off, activate Microsoft Purview Audit. Now, pretty much everybody has this turned on already. This is turned on, not by default, but it gets turned on right away. So it's there already, so you don't have to worry about that one. Then it talks about the Purview extension. So the Microsoft Purview extension, and that gives us that visibility into non-Copilot actions. So when you have that Purview extension and you onboard your devices, that really gets you that deep visibility into not only Copilot, but also Gemini, ChatGPT, and anything else that may be out there on that list we have out there. I have a couple links for you to drop in here for these two particular pieces, and I'll kind of walk through them too, so we actually know what we're looking at. But I'll drop these two links in here. So you have them also. Is the Purview extension also needed for Edge? Yes, it is. Purview extension is needed for Edge. We talk about Edge, we talk about Chrome in those two articles as well. So those are two browsers they cover for this as well. More browsers, of course, to come at some point in time, but those are the ones that are supported at this point. So if you look at this, if you go to the extension, you just go through here. It takes you to basically that link for the Purview extension. And you can install it right now. And this is what I do in my test environment. So I set this up and I set it up and I do it. You can just download it and put it on your browser right there. Easy peasy, nice and go. When you start doing about it at scale, then we're really talking about Intune at this point, right? So we want to use Intune to deploy that out there. Or group policy. So you can also set it up with group policy too. So two ways to set it up, but that really gives us the first part of what we need for our prerequisites. The second piece we need is to onboard those devices. Now, when we onboard these devices in the documentation, it'll walk you through how to do it here as well. So you can see it here, and those links are in the chat window. But really, for your testing purposes, and when we start looking at this, we can just go to settings right here and go to device onboarding. So in device onboarding, you can see, this is where you see all your devices. So quick note, if you are a Microsoft Defender for endpoint customer, so if you have MDE deployed, then all you have to do is onboard your devices. You just turn on onboarding, and everything that has the MDE agent on already will be automatically onboarded here. So if you're a customer of that, then that's pretty easy. You just turn it on and away you're going. If you're not an MDE customer, then we have the options to deploy this via Intune or via group policy. So two ways we can actually deploy that. For testing purposes for all of us out there, we can just do this. So notice we have the ability to have a script to onboard both Windows machines and Mac machines. And you can do this for up to 10 machines. So this is a great way to kind of kick the tires, get out there, start working, test it out, make sure you understand how it goes. And then when you start looking for doing it at scale, that's when we go through the actual documentation there and do it via Intune or do it via a group policy. So those are the two methods for deployment. But once you get those three things done, that's really when you, or those two, no, three things, yeah. That's really when you can start seeing that deep telemetry. Now, just for Copilot activity. So if you want to see native Copilot, native agents, so SharePoint agents, Copilot Lite agents, Copilot front agents, you don't actually have to onboard the devices, right? But it's good if you want to be able to capture everything. So we can see Copilot natively just because of the integration we have as part of Office 365, so we can see it. Kevin's got it, good deal. So Kevin's got the questions in the chat. But we can see Copilot activity just as is. You don't have to really do any of the onboarding stuff if you just want to kind of look at it. In fact, you can fire this up right now, look in Activity Explorer, and you're going to see Copilot activity if you have Copilot running in the region. No reason why Windows 11 is not there. The same instructions work for Windows 11, Mark. It's just they haven't updated the particular title of it yet. It still says Windows 10, but the same onboarding works for Windows 11. And that's what I'm running on my other side here, my test computer that you guys can't see. And it just onboards the same way. It's a pretty simple script. What it does is it runs, basically installs what's called sense.exe in the background. And that's how we can get that telemetry from those devices. So pretty simple stuff there, honestly. But once you get these two things done, that's where we can start seeing that full telemetry, no matter what type of generative AI product we're using. And where we see that is in Activity Explorer. So let's go there next. So here we are in Activity Explorer. And Activity Explorer uses what's called the Unified Audit Log, so the UAL. The UAL, and you can look for Copilot activity in the Unified Audit Log. I'm going to touch on that when we come into that e-discovery session in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from now. And I'll go through how we can use the Unified Audit Log. The thing about Unified Audit Log is it captures everything, right? So it captures pretty much 99% of all activity in your tenant, whether that's Copilot related or not. Doesn't really matter. So it gets kind of messy at the end of the day. And it's kind of hard to read if you ever went through it. It's in JSON, so you kind of have to filter through it and kind of understand it, how JSON actually displays it. But you get a lot of good data in here. And what Activity Explorer for DSPM for AI does is it actually takes out just the AI pieces of that, whether that's Copilot, whether that's Copilot chat, whether that's agents, whether that's non-Microsoft AI, whatever that may be, is there. So we can have that there. But this is where you can see everything. And this goes back 30 days. So by default, it'll show you a week in activity, but you can go back and get 30 days. So here we're back on September 9th, and you can filter then on all of that. And great things you can see here. So just notice some of the things that you see on the screen. First off, agent names. So this is one of the agents was put out there. So we have an agent, I call it Goal Analyzer, as a project for a customer to help them set their goals for the year. Then we have things like Copilot Chat, so Copilot Chat. And then if you keep scrolling over the side, you can also see other types of data. So we can see, was web search used? We can see what type of sensitive information type was hit during that particular query or that response. I use all full names just because all full names triggers pretty much everything. I use it for a lot of demos, but it's out there. But notice you can see other ones. So for diseases, medical information. And notice other places you can see this. So Outlook side pane. So this is me using Copilot Chat in Outlook to ask questions about an email at that point. You can see me using it in Teams. You can see me using, here's the analyst agent. So that's the first party agent that we put on there. Researcher and analyst, fantastic agents. If you ever had a chance to use them, I definitely recommend doing so. You can see it here in PowerPoint. You can see it in Word. You can see it in Excel. So it really gives you that visibility across all these different applications that are out there. And then you can dive deeper. So for instance, let's look at one for Microsoft Word. So here I have an AI interaction for Word. I click on it, and I can see not only will it access in Word, but I can also see the prompts and responses. So I can see the prompt that the person put in. Then you can also go through and actually see the responses that Copilot gave back to you at this point. And it even gives you the links to whatever it may be. So notice I was referencing a particular document. It gives me the links for there. It even tells me, where it went. So you can see I was using the National Institute of Health as my reference point for this one. So you can see it went to the NIH website looking for heart health references. So you can actually see what it's using as part of its response as well. So extremely powerful way to look and understand how people are using that. And that's just in Word. Same sort of thing comes up in agents too. So for instance, I go up to here to this Goal Analyzer agent. I can look in here you can see the agent, basically agent ID. If you ever need to know the agent ID, you can see it's a declarative agent. I made this with Copilot Studio Lite. Pretty simple, low code, no code, takes just a couple words to go. So you can do it, but you can also see the prompts that was put in the agent. So the agent was in here and the response that came back from it. So really it gives you that full visibility into those prompts. And here's another one. You can see it's sensitive information type. I can click on interactive activity and it's going to bring up, exactly the same thing. It's going to say, okay, what happened? You can see it was accessed in an app. It's going to show me the basic prompt, compare these two. So I was comparing two documents. And then you can see what was done in there as well. And then you can actually even see the documents that I used at the bottom of the screen there as well. So it's a great way to really get deep and see how people are using Copilot. And you can export this out if you so choose. So it'll bring that data out so you can use it, refer it how you want to use it, archive it back for some reason if you want to as well. And all this data, like I said, is in the unified audit log. So if you're using a SIEM appliance like Splunk, Sentinel, whatever that may be, this data is also captured. Now you'd have to do a bit more analysis on it because it's going to come back in JSON, but you can see that as well. So that's the Activity Explorer just at the basics. But then you can do all kinds of filtering. So for instance, if I want to look at my types of activity that may be going on. So what was it sensitive information type? Was it AI interaction? Did I have a DLP policy match on a Copilot? You would see that in here as well. You can see the different types of categories, whether that's agents, whether that's Microsoft Copilot, whether that is a non-Microsoft agent or non-Microsoft generative AI. They'll show up in the AI cap categories. You can see here right now, Copilot agents and experiences and agents, but it would also show things like Azure Foundry or ChatGPT or Gemini. Then you can see the actual apps and what the apps were accessed in. So you can see the different ones we're going through here. If I want to filter just on Excel, I could do so. If I want to just filter on Copilot Chat, I could do so, or PowerPoint, or an Outlook. So you can do all of that right here. Quick question, I'll answer that one, Youssef, really quick for the call. Does the Unified Audit Log also show the prompts and responses? Yes, it does, Youssef. The Unified Audit Log also captures all this data, and that's where we're pulling it from in the Activity Explorer here. It just puts it into a very nice format. It's easier to read. You don't have to go through JSON to do it, which is nice. But you can see here, I can go through all these different applications. And then I can even filter on agents. So what agents are being used out there? You'll see I have analyst agent, the researcher agent. Those are the two first-party agents from Microsoft. You can also see the other custom agents I've made with Copilot Studio Lights. You would also see any of the agents I made also as well to be in there. You can even filter by user. So if you want to look at a particular user, for instance, my good friend Zimmy, you can see just his activity. So you can search on a particular person if you need to do an investigation. You can also see sensitive information types. What kind of sensitive information types are accessed? This is one I deleted. But for instance, if I want to filter on anybody using medical terms and conditions, I can see so. Or anything that's related to healthcare, or lab types of medication, diseases. All these different things are in there, and you can filter on that, and it's going to show you the Copilot activity or whatever, agent activity or whatever, that relates to that particular sensitive information type. It even covers custom information type as well. So if you have custom sensitive information types, maybe you set something up for MRNs or whatever that may be, those will also show up in here as well. And then it also shows you web searches. So which ones had been web search enabled, which one actually reached out to actually get that data. You'll see that in here as well. So really great stuff in there. What about Copilot Studio workflow and combined agent use? Yes, Rich. So if it's designed with Copilot Studio, you will see that activity. If you want to put a policy on board, so for instance, you want to use an insider risk policy or communication compliance policy when it comes to something for Copilot Studio, the full version, there's a pay-as-you-go charge there. But you can see the activity in Activity Explorer. So that's actually there. Awesome stuff. So that's just a look there, but there's a lot more in the Activity Explorer as well, or just in here as well. Another piece I like to point out is our reporting. So the reportings are really good. So this is how we can go through and get kind of a snapshot in time of what's going on. So you'll see, times, I don't have any enterprise AI app set up at this point, but you can see all that data here. You can see the data just as a visual piece about what we're looking at. You can see here Microsoft Copilot with full names, sensitive information types. You can see data when it's been labeled. So if I'm working with data that has been labeled or not been labeled. and we'll go from there. You can see insider risk. So if you have insider risk policy set up, and you can see the severity for any kind of policy hits you have in there. It even goes into potential risky AI usage. So this is part of DSPM data as well. Can you actually see the data that was labeled? From the reports, no. From Activity Explorer, yes. You can see the data that was labeled, Nisha. That's available in Activity Explorer if you want to see. For instance, if I use Copilot on a document that was labeled, I don't know, internal, but it wasn't blocking me from using Copilot, and I used Copilot to actually go over for this, it would not allow me, it would show me actually what the labeled file was as part of that prompt response in the Activity Explorer. Great question. Take a couple questions here as I'm going through. I see a couple good ones. Joel, does the unified audit log also show the derived query after anonymization that is sent to Big by web grounded, or just the prompts and responses? It just shows the prompts and responses, Joel. It doesn't show that piece where we basically de-identify everything. It's going to show the prompts and response. You don't see what's going out at the end of the day at that point. Great question. Jose, there isn't really an article about E3 versus E5. All of our articles talk about E5 licensing at that point. Really, the only thing you really get with E3 is you're able to see Activity Explorer. You're not going to be able to design policies. That's what we always talk about E5 at that point. Great question. Other question, when a user overrides the sensitivity label, you see the DLP rule undo, but does not show you the label override they did. We'll talk about that more in the DLP part, David. Great question, and we'll talk more about that. Don't want to spend too much time on DLP because we do have a full session for that as well. Other question, we have one coming. Is understanding that compliance policy would proactively inform reviewers in this area? For instance, for example, trainable classifiers, rather than say an admin use a unified audit log, we're likely to find the prompt occurring. Yes, so Stuart, great question, communication compliance. It's going to inform reviewers exactly. So if somebody, and I don't want to go too much into communication compliance, but when somebody does an activity that you're monitoring with the trainable classifier, let's say it's hate speech or whatever that may be, that will flag, and the reviewers for communication compliance will have access to that. They would not have to go back to the unified audit log to look at it. It'll actually do it to you within communication compliance, and you'll set it. And we'll talk more about that when we get to communication compliance too, but that's spot on. Does Chrome and Firefox with Ascension have the same support as Edge for AI interactions? Yes, it does, Mustafa. It most certainly does. If you have that in there, you can see the same activity. You can see as it goes through. You'll see the same sort of data as you would with Edge, whether it's in Chrome or Firefox, as long as you have that extension applied. Great questions, everybody. Okay, so let's take a look at one more piece that I think is very interesting. It's in preview right now. And this is apps and agents. So this gives us the ability to look at all the different applications that are out there. So you can see I've got Copilot Studio. We have, of course, Copilot. It looks at Copilot Fabric, Security Copilot. If you have ChatGPT Enterprise, you'll see that as well. If you have Gemini Enterprise, which is just announced, that's all. That'll be in here as well when it becomes supported. So you can see the usage. You can kind of see the type of data, how many it's going through. So it gives you a nice little look at it. It also tells you if you have policies for insider risk or DLP setup around these different areas as well. So it kind of gives you a view of that. And you can do a little deeper dive if you go in here and click, and you can see more of it. So you can see here what policies are actually set up, who's it out there, what type of labels have been worked out, which type of files have been referenced. So you get this nice kind of overview report about what's going on within that as well. So very, very useful from a reporting standpoint. And you would see this then if we had ChatGPT Enterprise or the rest in here, you could see that type of activity too. The other nice piece we have here now that's preview is the agent view. I haven't used my agents in a bit, but you go through and you can actually look at your agents. It'll show you agents by high-risk users. So if you have an insider risk policy set up to look at risky generative AI usage, it'll pull up here. But you also have the reports on the screen here. So you can see the most active agents. What are the most recent agents? The agents that have the most users, and then the agent with the high-risk report. So if you have insider risk set up and you're monitoring for risky activity, it'll show up there as well. So it's a great report to look at your agent activities. This is in preview, however. So I will say, everything that's in preview, as we know, give it some time. It's not completely done. There may be some changes. It's pretty baked in. It's been around for a bit now, but there may be some changes coming to it in the future. So just be aware of that one. So it works for any AI workload implemented in the organization, or is it only for Copilot and Copilot Studio agents? It does. So from Purview perspective, we monitor all kinds of different generative AI products. But if you have a agent deployed via Azure Foundry, if you have an agent, for instance, a ChatGPT agent that you created out there, we can monitor for those as well. There is an additional charge for those. There's a pay-as-you-go if you're looking for to do policies on top of that, but it does show it in the Active Explorer. It also works with the new Teams Facilitator agent. That is correct. Good call, David. You can see it in there as well. Good to me. So there's a little piece about this. Again, remember it's in preview, so just remember it's there. Now we have the data risk assessment. This is what we talked about a little bit earlier. So real quick view of here. So this is our data risk assessment. You can see, this is what we have out here. This is one that default. So this is the one that runs, top 100 SharePoint sites, and it runs every week, and it's over the last 30 days. So this is going to run on a weekly basis. And it's not really configurable at this point. Now, if you want to create a custom assessment, that's what you can do down here. But let's look at the details. So I click on here. And you can see, okay, what's been going on. So it's looking for sensitive information type on all these different sites. You can see what's been labeled, where's not labeled. And then you can kind of go through and you see really in depth what's going on here. And the piece that I like to call out is here. So what are they shared with? So specific people. Now, when we talk about oversharing, what I'm really concerned with is this. People in my organization. So that's what we're talking about, basically saying, okay, this has been shared with everybody in your organization, and we need to take a look at that. Maybe it should be, maybe it shouldn't be. And this is where I usually get my SharePoint admins involved as a compliance person myself. I'm not a SharePoint admin, but when I see this type of activity, I'm saying, okay, let's talk to our SharePoint people. But from here, you can also take action. So notice I can click on this sales and marketing, and I can actually go directly to that site. So I can click here. If I have the right permissions. I'm a GA in this tenant. If you're not a SharePoint admin, you won't be able to do it. But you can go here and actually look at the actual site. And from here, you can look at the site settings to see if it really is shared with everybody, or see that it's shared with everybody. And maybe we flag that for our SharePoint people to take a look at. So you can go to the site. You can also look at what types of data is in here. And you can also do some protecting. So for instance, I can click here and it's going to guide me to create a data loss prevention policy for that particular label, whatever that label may be in there. So you can click there and do that. And I can also click here, and it can take me over to SharePoint Advanced Management to put what we call restricted content discovery in there. So make sure people can't see that if we so choose. If we think this site should not be indexed by Copilot, we can click here, and it brings you into the instructions to actually how to do that. It even tells you how to actually set that for restricted site coverage. So that particular site would not be able to be referenced via Copilot at that point. So not only can it give you the visibility into what's in there, how it's shared, but also give us options to protect it as well. And then we can go through, do a site access review. So if I trigger a site access review, that's going to send an email to the site owner saying, hey, you know what? We see some issues with this site. Take a look, make sure the right people are in there, remove people that aren't, or maybe we remove that shared with everybody, the EEY. So we can actually do that as well. So really, really powerful stuff. And this is all within your DSPM for AI. Again, from me perspective, when I'm talking to customers and we're looking at this, I always want to make sure the SharePoint administrators are involved because they need to know this data too. But it's a great thing to show them, say, hey, you know what? I was looking at DSPM for AI, and I noticed that, this one's shared with everybody in the organization, which is what I'd be looking at, here. Specific people, I don't worry about too much. That's usually, unless it's like a high value site, then I'll take a look at it and say, okay, I know there's a lot of HR data and there's something like that in there. And I'll take a deeper look at it. But usually if it's just specific people, I'm not too terribly worried. But for this one, it does say HR data. So I would probably take a look and say, okay, let's do a deeper dive, see, what type of data is in here, look at the site, and then make a decision whether or not we need to do that or not. Awesome stuff. So that's the DSPM, the data assessment. Now you can point this at a specific site as well. So you can create a custom site assessment, just give it a name, blah, blah, blah. And then you can add users. So who do you want to include in this data assessment? Include all users. And then you point it at a specific site. So which site do you want to see? You can scope the site down. And then you basically look at the sites out there. Notice there's a couple things coming soon. So last access and Copilot reference agents, that's coming soon. But if you know the name of the site, you type the site URL in, and then you're kind of off and running at that point. And you can see here, it's going to bring up my sites. So if I want to do an assessment on that HR data site or multiple HR data sites, I would then click done, and then turn it loose on it. And then you're going to have that custom assessment that's going to look just like basically what we see up here. You'll have the report. You can see it's in progress here. You click on it, and then you can have that kind of data to look at, just like we did for the default assessment too. So really, really great stuff in there. Okay, last piece we'll get into is some quick policies. We'll talk about this. Not going to dive too deep into this, just because the fact that we do have sessions on this coming up. But this is where we can see all of our different policies that are out there. So notice I have my DLP policies, I have insider risk policies, and I have communication compliance policies. I can look at the policies directly. So for instance, if I want to look at a particular policy, I can go there. Or let's say a DLP policy. So here's a Copilot DLP policy. I can investigate any alerts that may be coming up directly from here. It'll take me to the alerts page on Purview to actually see those alerts. Or I can actually go to that policy solution and take a look at that particular DLP policy to see how it's configured, make modifications, changes to it, if I so choose. We can go from there and really kind of do a deep dive into there. I'm not going to talk too much about DLP just because we do have that session next week. It's going to be a great session. It's going to be a fantastic session. But notice it can take me to my Copilot and I can do my edits, review the policy, whatever that may be. Or what's more likely for me, what I usually come here as, is I want to see those alerts. So as I'm looking at those alerts, they're right there in the policies, and I can click on it and actually look at the alerting, so I can actually see it directly from there as well. So really, really powerful stuff in here. If you look at your recommendations, your overview, you'll see we do have extend insights for your data discovery. So this is that last piece. So if you click here, now, first thing I'll say, if you click create policies here, it's going to create these default policies for you. There's not going to be any impact to your users. It's going to be in audit only mode when you do that. But it's a quick way to get all of these policies set up. You notice I just created a couple right now, but I can go through, click create policies. And it's going to create those 3 default policies for me: the risky AI usage, the DLP one, and the communication compliance policy as well. So you can get these up and running very, 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 very quickly. And then you can go back, make modifications. But again, you can see which ones it does. So this is a DSPM for AI policy. So this is talking about detective sensitive information shared in AI prompts with Edge. So it talks about that. I can go into the policy details. We can also create that policy when a user visits an AI site. And then it's pasting sensitive information into AI sites as well. So it's creating all of these insider risk policies for you. It gets them up and running. And then you'll see them at this point over here. You'll notice it added a few new policies for me. So DSPM AI, detect information, detect risky AI usage. And then the last one, Copilot interactions here at the bottom. Oopsie. Here at the bottom. So it creates those 3 by default. They're in report only mode. So then you can go back and look at them. And we're going to do deeper dives on those when we come into our next sessions. So we're going to look at those data loss prevention policies in depth next week with Mr. Ben Perkins. It's going to be a great session. Hope you all can make it. And then we'll have our communication compliance policies, and we'll also look at those insider risk policies on November 7th. So really fantastic stuff there. All right, I'm going to take a pause. Questions. I see one question here. Kevin, did I miss anything that's maybe up the chain that I haven't answered yet?
I believe we're good. There's just a couple that have come in the last minute or so. Data discovery and the browser extension is needed for Edge.
Got you. So last one first. Yes. So confirm that. It jumped on me. Confirm that Purview browser extension is needed for Edge to monitor non-Microsoft AI apps, but not for Copilot. That is correct, Ahmed. So with Copilot, since it's part of the Office ecosphere, so that goes for Copilot Studio, Copilot Studio, the full version, Copilot Studio Lite, and any first-party agents that we have, like analyst, researcher, all those, your Copilot paid usage and Copilot chat usage. So the one that everybody has their licenses. That is all covered without the need for Purview. If you want to monitor things like ChatGPT and the rest, that's when you need that browser extension. But just to be safe, I always recommend just to get it out there anyways, so you don't have to worry about it. It's pretty easy to deploy the browser extension, Intune, group policy, and it's just kind of covering your bases from the get-go, so you don't have to worry about it. Another one, in data discovery, can we see the exact data or just see the location where the SIT data is? So you can see the exact data. So in Activity Explorer, you can actually see the data that's being deployed out there. within the actual prompt responses. And it even gives you a link to go to, so you can actually go through and look at that particular piece of data if you so choose. Great question. Question, is my understanding correct that DSPM for AI gives us opportunity to run assessments with custom requirements we have? There is no, to create policies. Yes, so there is no dedicated DSPM for AI policy. No, so there's no DSPM for AI policy. It gives you that window to have all of your policies that relate to generative AI in one place. So it recommends you to create DLP, IRM, all of that with a single click. That is correct. But there's not really a DSPM for AI policy. It's an insider risk policy, communication compliance policies, and DLP policies. Great question, Rajab. Joel, you mentioned that the derived query sent to Bing from web chat ground is not unified to Autolog. Is it available anywhere in Purview? Not that I know of, my friend. I have been asked that question before. I'll go back and follow up. I'll take a peek at the unified audit log on one of my chat-based queries, and I'll reply back to you. I'll probably just put it in the email that I sent out just so everybody gets it, Joel. I'll double verify, but I do believe it only captures the actual prompt and response and not that de-identified data that's sent out. I believe so. In fact, I don't know if anybody has eyes on that, to tell you the truth. Microsoft can't see it on the back end. We don't have visibility into it. And it's just a couple words usually. So I put in a really long prompt and it does use web grounding, and it usually comes back
What's
with like
weird
2
is
or 3 words.
you can see it in Copilot chat now, right? Where if you click sources and then you hover over the little information thing, you can see it. So it's just surprising to me that it wouldn't be in Purview somewhere. Because this happened to us, and because Copilot Chat is not HIPAA compliant, we had to try to figure out what actually went out to the web. So yeah, I appreciate
I'll do
the
a little
follow-up.
extra
Thank
dig
you.
for you, Dole. Yeah. I'll see if I can find it in the unified audit log to see if it's in there. But I'll follow up with you, my friend. Yeah, you bet. Question, hand up in the air. Regine. Do you have a question, my friend? And if you're talking, you're on mute. Okay, I'll keep going here. Is implementing DSPA guarantee a full coverage of all AI risks? Nothing's guaranteed, Mustafa. There's always going to be risk, and we always got to make sure that we're educating our users on proper use and responsible use of generative AI. But it gives us a lot of visibility that we don't have before. I would never say anything's a guarantee because people will always try to do something they shouldn't do. But by using it, and by implementing these policies within DSPM for AI, it gives us a lot more control and visibility than we would have if we didn't use it. When those one-click policies get created, will the results show in Activity Explorer, but also, yes, so you'll see them both, Pio. So you'll be able to see them in the Activity Explorer in DSPM for AI, and they'll also be the embedded explorers for DLP, IRM, communication compliance, and all the rest. They also come up in, your alerting for, like, if it's a DLP policy, you'll see it in the alerts page, so you'll see it all then as well. How does DSP AI help to align with specific regulatory templates? That's a great question, and it's not really DSPM for AI when it comes to regulatory pieces, but there is a great little piece in here for that. If you look at our compliance manager, and this is off topic, sorry, but in compliance manager, we do have policies that look at regulatory usage for Gen AI usage. In fact, I have one set up here. You can use these, and it kind of goes through the best practices around the different qualifications you need to do, whether it's GDPR and all the rest, for those particular ones. Like I have an assessment here, and this is for Gen AI. You can see NIST AI Risk Management Framework. So you can use this to kind of get a handle today on what's going on. What are the things you should be looking at when it comes to generative AI usage? So it's a great place. It's not really DSPM for AI, but it's there. Question. Question. I'll send out as much when the email comes out. I'll send you all the links to everything we have in here as well. I have a global admin role, a compliance admin role. I'm still unable to view the AI interactions for usage. Yeah, so that's always a great question. So if you look at your settings and roles, and it talks about it in DSPM for AI as well in the documentation. But if you look at your settings and you look at your roles, you need to have It'll come up in a second.
I believe it's a content explorer, content view, or
exactly.
there may be a specific one for DSPM for AI to see that
Nope.
that interaction, I believe.
It's Content Explorer view. Yeah. So
yes.
that's the one you
okay,
actually
so I have
need.
the right one. Phew.
Yep. Yep. Good call, Kevin. Yep, it's that one. So it's a Content Explorer role. It's also on the documentation, Kumar, on the link I first sent. I'll send those links again. It goes through all the roles and responsibilities you would need to actually get this done. And I can stay on longer today for questions, so I'm not in any hurry here. Will I be sharing the recording? Yes, I'm going to be sharing the recording. I'm going to share a PDF of this deck and all the different links that may be required. I'm also going to share the recording from last week too. So you'll get this all in email. It's going to pop into your probably this afternoon is my guess. I have to get it formatted, put it into YouTube to have it posted, so it'll all be there. Yeah, Kevin got that right. Is there a gap not covered by DSPM for AI? I understand what you're getting at, Mustafa. There's always probably going to be some sort of a gap. But if you're using Copilot, if you're using Gen AI, if you're using Gemini, you're using ChatGPT, we have the ability to create policies, to have to look into all of those different ones. We cover something like 300 different applications. So it's pretty comprehensive, my friend. We can't speak to the future about what may come out there. There may be some new Gen AI app that's just released that we don't cover at this point. So there's always a bit in there. But again, I always come back to, I'm talking to my customers. We need to make sure that we have a consistent strategy for Gen AI usage. What can we use? What can we use? What can't we use? And then how do we stop that usage? We can monitor here. We can make controls with DLP so people can't do certain things in certain Gen AI apps. But there's always things that we need to make sure that we're thinking about that may not be covered here. If a user deletes their Copilot activity, does DSPM for AI still capture usage for auditing? Great question, Jerry. So the answer is that depends. And I'm going to talk about this more when we talk about retention. So if we have a retention policy set up, and you can't set up a retention policy just for Copilot activities, then yes, even if they delete it, I'm still going to be able to retain it for X, whatever. If I say retain it for 1 year, it's still going to be there. However, if it's not covered by a policy, a retention policy, and they delete it, it will be cleared out of their, it basically lives in your email at the end of the day, within 30 to 60 days. So it kind of clears out depending on what your policy is set up for email. But if we have a retention policy set up, it's always going to be there as long as that retention policy is in play and it's within the time frame. That's why people tend to not think about retention policies when it comes to Copilot, but it's actually very important because we do want to be able to retain that for auditing purposes. Some customers expect that DSPM for AI would be the place to go for enforced restrictions such as data in SharePoint. It does need to be a collaborative effort, Pio. It's a great question. I always try to loop in my SharePoint people when we're having these conversations. Because they know the SharePoint environment a lot better than I do as a compliance person, usually. And there's some controls that we just need to talk about. I mean, any technology is a collaboration, especially now, between multiple teams. If you think about, Teams itself, right? So Teams, it's a communication protocol, but it also has SharePoint involved with it. So I think we always have to be talking to those other sides of the house when it comes to IT. It's not like the days of just having email servers, SharePoint servers. This is what you do, and there's no really mix between the two. In Office 365, it's all interrelated, so we really need to be talking to people. So it is a collaborative effort. Yes, I will be sharing all the PowerPoints and the decks. No worries there. Can I also view prompts and responses for other AI apps? Yes, Yusuf. So Yusuf, if you have the extension for Purview, Chrome, Firefox deployed out there, I'll go back to DSPM for AI just to review this one more time. So if we have the Purview extension deployed and those devices are onboarded into Purview, and the instructions are all on this page, and I'll send those out. I'll send the links to it as well. You can see other AI apps. So you'll be able to see things like ChatGPT, Gemini, Bard, or I don't think Bard exists anymore, Grok, you name it. The list is like 300 and some odd longs. Are these policies for Copilot monitoring only on the browser level or also included in the apps too? Yes. So if you noticed, great question. So back here to Activity Explorer really quick, you can see, once it renders here, I can see Copilot activity in PowerPoint. I can see Copilot activity in Outlook. I can see Copilot activity, scrolling down here, Word, Excel. So it's all in the apps as well. And it even captures, if you're familiar, if you have a Copilot license now, you have chat turned on in, like for instance, Word. You can go to chat now and do web grounded queries. it also captures that activity as well. And that's what this actually was. So the Outlook side pane was me doing chat in Outlook. So it captures it from the apps as well. Other third-party agents, AI agents. It's a great question. It's possible. There's going to be what they call as a pay-as-you-go charge for that one. I can't tell you exactly the specifics of how much it costs, but we do have that ability to see other third-party agents if we have it turned on and we have it configured. There's a pay-as-you-go model behind it. I'll send a link to that if you want to in the documentation when I send it out too. Any other questions? Feel free to come off mute if you so choose. Copilot and PCs, yes, Jerry, yes. So your Copilot button on the bottom here, the one that's linked, that's really just Copilot, and you can actually see Copilot activity. And technically, you could see the Copilot consumer as well. Now, I would not recommend people using Copilot consumer unless you're just at home doing it. That's fine. But if you're in the organization, business work, use Copilot Chat, the one that comes with your license, or use Copilot Paid if you have a license. But yes, we can see that activity from the Copilot for PCs. Defender for Cloud App Policies. We will touch that on DLP tomorrow or next week, Nisha. We will touch on DLP when it comes to MDCA. And there is definitely some overlap there when it comes to it. Do we need a collection policy for non-Microsoft AI activity? No, you don't need a collection policy, Ahmed. So as long as you have the devices onboarded and you have the Purview extension deployed, you don't need a specific policy to monitor in Activity Explorer. It will show up. If you're using communication compliance, insider risk, there's policies just for non-Microsoft AI activity. But just to be able to see the data in Activity Explorer, no policy needed. But you do need to have that Purview extension deployed and the devices onboarded. Other questions from anybody? Okay, well, thank you, everybody. It's been great seeing everybody today. Can't wait to see you all. And don't forget, we have our session next week as well. I'm going to drop a link to the form of survey, so please fill this out. I'll send it an email too. And then if you haven't registered for the other sessions, I'm going to drop that link in here too. So please, please, please come register. Come see us next week. We're going to be talking about data loss prevention. Everybody loves that topic. Super, super important and really, really great. So for those of you who missed the link to register in the beginning, I'll drop it one more time. Here we go. And then from me personally, thank you so much, everybody, from both Kevin and I. It's great to see everybody here. We love all the questions. We love it being interactive. So thank you all so much. Have a great rest of the day. Have a great weekend. I know I'm probably in between you and the weekend. So please have a great weekend and come back next Friday. We'll be here same time, same channel. Topic's going to be data loss prevention. My good friend Ben's going to be hosting it. I'll be here as well to kick us off. So thank you all so much. Have a great, great day, great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much.